Okay, hey everybody, this is Grace. In this video, I'm going to talk about a rather twisted story. Not like you would see on TV or something like that, or by some major influence. It's just twisted. And I guess for me, that's how I see it, because it is kind of it's personal in a way that, what nerve of people to do stuff like that when there are people out there who actually have problems, real problems, not made up problems, or not. Okay, you'll just have to listen to this one, okay? Okay, so basically I'm going to talk about my part first. I don't know how to exactly put this, but I have always been a tall female, okay, since I was a child. Tall female. And I got it honestly. My dad was 6'7". That's all he would admit to. He was built like a linebacker. I have four siblings. All five of us, are tall. And we're not, like they used to call them beanstalks. What a world we lived in back then. When the people said things like beanstalk for somebody who was thin, or there was twiggy too back then. Calling somebody something that's other than human is not a good thing. But anyway, so I was, strong. We're all kind of strongly built, I guess you could say. Maybe not one of them. Okay. And I live in Texas, and it wasn't, but when I grew up, there was no such thing where I grew up. Just bullying. Bullying, I didn't even know what that meant until I was probably in my 20s. I heard somebody mention it. I'm like, really? There's no tolerance. It wasn't until, in schools and stuff. And, I was a career student at university, both undergraduate and graduate. And during that while I did, as part of it, I did teaching every grade from pre-K all the way to seniors. Well, seniors at university, but that was on my own. That was not as a GA or a TA. I was using my own education. I was a career student over 20 years, so yeah. Okay, sorry. There are a lot of people around here, and I don't put people's kids in my videos, so I have to be careful. But anyway, for me, I was this career student and all this stuff, and it wasn't until, I don't know, I'd say maybe the 2010s or 2000s that I even heard of no tolerance for bullying in these schools. And it did seem like, that kids didn't pick on other kids for just about everything. When I was in school, everybody got picked on at some point, and we all pretty much went to school with just one another from at least, back then we had junior high, okay, upwards. And so we could see, everybody got picked on. Well, some people got picked on more, especially like me, okay, because I was tall, and I've always been overweight. Okay, now I'm overweight, but not obese, but tall, female, overweight, not obese. Okay, so do the math, figure it out. But basically, to say any female at this height should weigh this much, I always question that, because there are some people who are my height in school. It was kindergarten. She and I figured it out. She was one of those people used to call beanstalk or something like that. That's, like I said, that's dehumanizing people. But she was tall at my height, skinny. I was tall and hourglass. Well, not then, but later on. You get the gist. Were we going to weigh the same thing? All through school, all through high school, did we weigh the same? No, of course not. So, anyway. So I've always, in fact, just up until 2 years ago, I weighed the least, actually, that I'd weighed at any point from going back into junior high. Seriously, all through my adulthood. And, but even so, like I said, not obese, even so, I would get, even as an adult, I would have people being, rude, just total strangers, you name it, because of my height, my size, just people mocking. Or, grown adults, even. In school, back then, it was way back then. Why are you stopped right there? Why are you just stopping in the middle of the road? Okay, that makes absolutely no sense. That always worries me when somebody just stops right in the middle of the road. They're not parked on, anything. They just stop right in the middle of the road. Alrighty. It's an elderly man. Okay, anyway. I didn't see it until he passed me. But anyway, so I got picked on a lot in my life. People judge me, not really, it's not, I can't say when you get older it's so much as picking on, it's people being judgmental and telling you how you're supposed to do it. No, I listen to my doctor and the doctors know what's going on. Okay. None of their business, And these are the same people I would see, like, possibly, these are people I would see go, like, say at work. I would see them go up to the, what were they called? Those ones you put, what are they called? I don't use those words anymore. Oh my goodness, where is it? But the candy machines and stuff like that. And just get junk, just all kinds of junk food. And I'm like, they see themselves as some example? Really? So anyway. Okay. Now with all that said, I have never been, and I am not now, someone who makes fun of any person because of their appearance in any way. Okay, not in any way. Now, if I should correct myself, if somebody's dressed in something that's wild and crazy, it's like, whoa, really? Like that. Because you think of histrionic personality disorder. That's, my degrees are in psychology and sociology. I said over 20 years. Yeah. So when I see somebody dressed like, whoa, what the, it's not judgmental, it's that I notice it. And then if their behavior is consistently, okay, I don't want to go into all that. But here's the twisted thing recently. Like I said, I don't judge people by their size. I see their size. In my mind, very analytical, very logical person. What I see is, well, let me hold on. Okay, what I see in this one, let me jump to this, is somebody trying to use something like that in such a weird, twisted way that still doesn't make any sense to me. And it's somebody online, and I don't know if you've heard of this person. Maybe some people have heard of this whole thing. It sometimes surprises me how many people have heard about the same thing, or even know some of the people that do this. Know them online, they watch them or whatever. Like if they make videos and such, they follow them, however it is, whatever it is. And it was like, wow. I just noticed another one that's, some people are, more than one channel. I'm guessing. I finally saw that was more than one channel. There was this one woman, she's bad, and they're doing, I finally figured out what it was called, reaction channels. Me, I don't ever point out the person's name or anything like that, or channel name or anything like that. Me, it's the behaviors. For me, it's always the behaviors. And this one, it's just so weird, just so twisted. Okay, at some point I'll wind up doing this because there'll be too many. I can't tell if they're kids or teenagers or adults, so I'll do this. I don't put anybody's, like I said, any kids in my videos. So anyway, here's the weird twist. Okay, say you've heard of this person who is going through some really tough times, and this is over, say, couple years or so, even maybe a year, I don't know. But they're going through some rough time and everything, and say it's a woman, and starts saying things like not having enough money, barely having enough money to pay for bills, or too much. It gets to this point at some point, saying that she can only afford to pay for her basically her home and keeping the lights, electricity on, her mortgage or whatever it is, and but she doesn't have any money for groceries. That is what she says. She has no money for she has no money to apply toward her groceries. Now she does online videos, and some of her audience starts sending her money, so she can have money for groceries. And she continues this over time. Now she is someone who does videos and shows herself, like if she has, you say somebody who walks in the park, goes for walks and stuff like that. And how someone will put the video camera, usually people have GoPros. That's what I've always heard for years now. And they put the GoPro somewhere, and they walk away, act like like it's not there, but not pointing out that it's there. They just clipped it to where they're walking away, and so it shows their whole body. I'm not talking anything, but just shows them walking in a park. Okay, so you can see how tall they are, and it's not their purpose, but you can see it's right there on camera, on film. Clothes 100%. It's just that they want to show themselves in that park, or show themselves in the woods, or show themselves wherever they are, in the grocery store, whatever. And, make the video interesting, or other people get to see. Now, so there it is, it's on camera. You can see the person's size and everything. Like I said, it's not good. I don't make fun of people's size. I don't judge them by this. However, this is so twisted. This person, this woman, she says she doesn't have money for groceries, but over time, enough time, however long it is, I don't know, she gains a lot of weight. A lot of weight. And because she does these in the park, in the store, in the wherever she, is going to, on the beach, on the whatever it is, she, shows herself. You can see the change in her size, because she gains around, like I'm saying, around 100 pounds. During the while, she says she doesn't have money for groceries. Now, people are not stupid. They can see, wait a minute, on the one hand, she's saying she doesn't have money for groceries, and she keeps saying that time after time after time after time. And, over for who knows how long, during that time. Yet she keeps gaining weight, and it's full body weight. She just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, including, like I said, I don't make fun of people, but you cannot see her neck because her chin has become so big. You cannot see her neck, okay, over time, because her chin's getting so big. Because, what is that? I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to say it's this reason or that reason or whatever. I am not in any way, shape, form, or fashion a person who's an expert on any of this, diet, exercise, weight, anything medical. Not at all a voice of authority, so I wouldn't know what's causing this weight gain of hers. If she doesn't have money for groceries, then how is she gaining weight? There could be so many other reasons. I know for a fact there are other reasons a person can get big without overeating. I know for a fact that. But I am not a medical provider, so I can't say what it is because I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to be one to diagnose. But there's some little signs that's so twisted, like I said. For example, she will show herself all the while she has made videos saying she doesn't have money for groceries. Why is it that she doesn't have money for groceries? She's working, she, makes some money, but she'll always say she just doesn't have the money for groceries. And yet she's getting big, like I said, and I'm not a healthcare provider, so I can't say why. Yet, then she shows herself on occasion going out to eat at restaurants or wherever and spends quite a bit of money for that's not a cheap place. It's not a fast food. It's not a cheap, or even going to buy groceries. So a lot of people do that. They show themselves buying groceries. I started off, my original channel will be 11 years next year, and I was the one who did shopping videos. Okay, still do. It's relaxing to me. But what's not relaxing to me is to see people use stuff like this. What the heck, It just boggles the mind because it goes on. At some point, from what I understand, who are these two people? This is where it's like it's in a movie. Hold on. Okay, I don't know I'm not going to show it because they're young, but two people, they look like they come out of a movie or something. They're both blonde, look natural blonde even. One male, one female. Maybe they're actors. Actor and actress. I don't know. But it was kind of weird. Anyway, get back to this twisted part. Now, from what I understand, and I could be wrong. Okay, like I said, if you've heard of this, then let me know if you've heard too. I don't want to know the person's name, channel name. I don't gossip like that. If you've heard of a story like this, then that's what I'm saying. But I guess people started to see it. They started to, and why are you going so slow? What is it with people today? It looks like their bed is about to fall off of their truck. Seriously. Anyway, I'm a little, anyway. I guess they've figured out is she's of course lying. I mean, not of course, strike it. But she's lying. So she takes a weird twist to it. And, I mean, even weirder, I guess. But says that okay, I don't even know how to say this right. I really don't, because to me it's twisted in just this kind of way. That her financial problems, not having enough money, but she's working, she's making good enough, yet she just doesn't, according to her, have the money for groceries. That her financial problems are causing her to put on weight, or causing the weight to be on her body. Does it boggle your mind? Have you ever heard of something? And I'm not talking to her, she's not saying things like, so I overeat, I've got all these financial woes and it causes me to eat comfort food. No, she's saying that the problems actually cause her body to get bigger somehow. And my degrees are in psychology and sociology. I was a career student for over 20 years. I have never heard anything like that. I could be wrong. You got to mix it with medical. I could be wrong, but I have never heard anything like that. Ever. bizarre things happen. There are bizarre things in medical, their mental, all that bizarre. But how in the world? I mean, seriously. I mean, do you know of some kind of something going on there that can actually put weight on your body 100 pounds and you're not eating it? You know, I mean, I know there are ones that can cause you to keep weight and you can't, you know, you have a very difficult problem losing it. But yeah, that's not the same thing as far as I know. Like I said, I'm not a healthcare provider. But it just seems like to me and other people, apparently, have you heard this? You know what I'm saying? It's a big scam. And, you know, I don't like to use the word gullible because that's blaming the victim. But some people, they don't know either. You know, I've never heard of it. They've never heard of it, possibly. You know, so they say, oh, this must be somebody whose doctors have told her this. And, you know, so she keeps insisting she doesn't have money for groceries. You know, so the people who are saying, oh, she's just scamming for money, you know, e-begging, you know, Grifter, what are all the different names for it, you know, and just using this kind of thing as a scam, you know, that she doesn't have money for groceries, so people give her money, feel sorry for her so she can eat, even though the evidence might point to point to that she's eating plenty. And she shows herself buying groceries even, and it's not really the stuff that a poor person would spend money on. Like a person who's really just scraping by, or who doesn't have money for groceries. People send her a lot of money, from what I understand. Now, let me tell you, this is very offensive to me. Seriously offensive to me. That somebody, and I can't really explain it, that somebody would do something. This is a health condition. To use a health condition and or to make up a health condition, I don't know if it's something she's made up. Seriously, her financial problems put the weight on her. She's not eating it because she doesn't have the money for groceries. She's not doing comfort food. She doesn't have the money for it. Now, how long can you survive without groceries? Okay, so obviously she has to be eating something. I mean, come on. That one, I think many of us know, you know, that you've got to eat to survive. If you don't eat, and she's been doing this for months, how many people survive? Seriously. I cannot imagine anybody would survive months without eating. You know. So, but I find it so offensive, like I was saying, because being someone that has had issues, it's not really me having the issues, it's the people who are being judgmental about my size, you know, because they have a certain, you know, my university, when I was attending there, in the class that I was in, some women decided to do some research, and they did research and all that, and they specifically chose themselves. One was African American, one was Latina, and the other one is a white woman. Okay, they chose this purposefully, and each one of them went out and for their own ethnic group, and then they combined it to find out certain things about weight in their own ethnic group and how it's viewed, and they did a lot, okay, for this. And basically that they came back, and it was that white women are, I would call it severely judged by their size. But it was not true for the ones who did they all did this research and combined it together. The ones who were African American and Latinas. That's the only three ethnic groups. whites usually isn't considered an ethnic group, but yeah, we weren't allowed to use color to define anybody when I was a student at university. Color was not. So anyway, so it is there that white people were judged more harshly. Okay, white, not people, women. White women were judged more harshly. So I am a white woman. I have been judged harshly in my life. And does anybody else quite understand what I'm saying? Why her way, this grifter or whatever, even though it just is twisted, to me, I don't have proof that it's twisted, but hey, never heard of this ever in my 61 years, if I ever heard that way, ever. And why is it so offensive to me? Seriously. And this is a person who, you know, like I say, people figuring it out, people judge, people say, you know, not other people, they're okay with judging. You know, you just gain reason, you know, over however long, 100 pounds, yet you're saying you don't have money for groceries. A lot of people, yeah. And a lot of people don't know, you know, just like me, I don't know 100%, so, hey, some people don't consider it. They're just going to point out that. You know, you're saying this, yet here you are showing yourself buying groceries, here you are showing yourself eating at restaurants. People have to eat to survive, they have to have some kind of nourishment and to survive. And here you are still telling your audience like they're all fools, this kind of thing, and then showing yourself that you are gaining weight. Now, I can't tell you, I remember when I was younger, people would say, you know, like, I was a career student, I was by myself for a while. Adam was in another state, and this was, I don't remember how long, but I was doing the career student thing. I mean, yeah, and it was the starving student thing. And Adam was like, why didn't you tell me you didn't have the money for the groceries? And so, you know, speaking of, and he was in another state, and so he'd come back and went out and said, let's go buy you some groceries, you know. But, you know, during that time, I heard people say, yeah, you can gain weight on bad food, you know, cheap food. But still, I never, you know, like I said, this woman actually shows herself going to buy groceries. And it's not the cheap stuff. Her restaurant is not the cheap stuff. You know, whatever she goes for, whatever, and gets food, not cheap stuff. But she doesn't have the money for groceries. I don't know. But I didn't have the money. I've had times in my life when it was rough. And $25 a week groceries. I had it one time. I wound up in a hospital because I wasn't eating enough. And the world was spinning around me. You know, I went through a time when I didn't have enough money for groceries. I mean, more than once. And that, like I said, the time the world was spinning around me, and I wasn't eating. I was eating things like, well, I'm not going to say how my diet was. It was bad. It was bad. And I would watching TV, and I see this display of all this fruits and vegetables, mainly vegetables. I was like, oh, I would love to have that. You know, those vegetables, those this, those that. And for somebody to do such a thing, in the twisted way, to get, oh, you're a little too close. God, why do people have to do that? What is wrong with you? Drive so close they could take off my side view mirror. What the crap? See, this is why I keep saying I need to find another place to sit, because over here by this park, and there's a school, an elementary school on the other side, and that whole block, people drive so fast and so weird. It's 30 miles per hour during the school zone. The school zone itself is 20. And they'll drive 60. And drive weird, like too close, that kind of thing. But anyway, does any of this make sense? I'm not judging her on her size. I'm judging her on her lies. And it could be, I'm just ignorant on this. How does the financial problems put that weight on her? It's the problem is the financial woes, and if she hasn't actually said, if more people gave her all the money that they have, that they can, then her financial woes would go. But she's hinted enough. She's actually has said some things like the money she makes off of this. You know, her putting up videos. And there's still not enough for her to have money for groceries. Really? I can do the math. I've heard people, you know, say things or see things. Yeah. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I just came out. Adam was saying, please don't go and stay too long. Yeah. Anyway, I'll talk to you on another video. Bye.